welcome back to the Ethereal Material, where the mystical meets the practical.
And we are Priscilla and Carla, two professional mediums discussing the gap between the seen and the unseen.
All topics are on the table for dissection, and today we're going to be answering a listener's question who questions whether any of this is actually real.
Yeah, questioned it in kind of an aggressive way.
Here's my
A very confrontational way, like I think this is BS.
But as I recall, there was also, I believe, that hope in there that it was real, or else it wouldn't have come
Yeah.
up, because I didn't feel it was completely combative, like you suck and we don't
Right.
believe in any of this.
Right.
It was almost maybe programmed in their thinking since they were young that none of this could be true. I mean,
Clearly, the questioner wanted to engage.
yes, that's
Like-
it. That's it. You wouldn't be asking it, and it wasn't combative, really.
Yeah.
It was more defensive on they want to believe, but they don't want to believe it, and they
It was
you could see
like
that.
confrontational. Like I want you to confront me on this topic.
And I want to be convinced.
I want to be convinced. Yeah.
Yes.
And the thing is, though, to that listener, there is no convincing. This is not yet something that can be measurable scientifically. And for people who are who would feel most comforted by that level of conviction are usually most satisfied by here is black and white evidence. I mean, we are evidential mediums.
We offer black and white and evidential mediumship. I mean,
But you've had, I know you've had clients, because we talked about it. I've had clients who are so into it in the middle of the session, and the minute it's over, it's like they've shaken off their belief, and they're like, yeah, well, I mean, I guess it could have happened, as they're walking out to the car, and you're like, what? I just described the tattoo you altered, from this to the, or you just had one with an actual thumbprint, and stuff you can't make. I mean, we are not generic mediums.
No.
We're generic psychics. And yeah, something seems to shut down. It's like, as long as I'm in the reading, I'm gonna let myself be carried away by it. But now I'm back to real life, and it's already floating away like a helium balloon that I can sort of hold on to, but
there's an aggression that sometimes, this doesn't happen a lot, but over the many, many years we've done it, it does happen. They're almost in the moment where the belief is there, and they're like children.
Yeah.
In a good way. And they believe, and there's tears in their eyes, and they're like, wow.
Yeah.
But when the session ends and the switch gets flipped, all of a sudden the old learning and the old cellular memory from what they've been taught kicks in. And then the left brain comes in. Well, then why would they have said that? I wanted to hear this. Okay, but whatever we said, you just validated. It was crazy stuff.
Right.
And you were in tears. So it's almost like a deprogramming, I think, that one needs. Right?
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, when the person says to me, and they have said to me, as in these words, prove it. And the answer is I can't. I can't.
But you can prove it. See, if someone said, prove it to me, I'd probably, to start the reading, if you said that.
Well, the reading will not continue if somebody started a reading like that.
But if they say, again, this is like rare, right? This does not happen a lot in our careers at this point. Right. But if someone went and said something like that, I would be like, I just did. In fact, this is not the same, but it is. I was reading somebody 4 to 5 days ago. And I said, we talked to whoever she wanted to connect with. And it was not a psychic reading at that point. And she gave me a name of somebody. And I brought them through. She validated. Everything was fine. And then whatever I said must have hit her own nerve. Something she was not psychologically ready for. It wasn't anything heavy. But it's like, well, he wanted to say X, Y, and Z. And then her defense went up. And I saw her, it was on a Zoom, and she said, well, I really have nothing to say to him, and I don't need to talk about that with him. I don't need any further connection with him. And you could see the defense slightly built. And then I looked at her on the Zoom, I moved up, and I said, I beg to differ with that tone. Because, it's after so long of doing this, I hold a confidence. I said, I beg to differ because I just asked you who you want to speak to, and you said the person's name. And then we did a reading. So I feel we don't have to continue. I let her off the hook.
Right.
I said, I don't want to upset you, but you just asked me to connect to the person. So I would argue that you do have something, but you don't have to solve that now.
Mm,
Because I wanted her to be released from it.
right.
And she paused and she said, I guess you're right.
Mm,
Because she had no recourse.
yeah.
But it hit a nerve that she wasn't ready for. And what I will not do then is push. I have
Yeah.
no reason to push. I just did my evidence work. We proved it.
Right.
But you need to be in a good psychological state. I'm not here to upset you.
I think, there has to be too, like, I think maybe the foundational thing on this question that we have to address is belief. Beliefs are subjective. I can believe something and therefore it's true for me, but I know, because I'm an intelligent person, that it's not necessarily universally true. But I think for some people, their beliefs are, especially about things that are edgy or uncomfortable, or they have conflicting feelings
Mhm.
about it. Beliefs have to be immovable, and they have to be the truth, and they have to be the truth not only for that person who's perceiving that belief and experiencing that belief, but it has to be true for the other person. I mean, look at the current political climate, for example. I mean, to believe that a person in power, despite evidence to the contrary, is a good person or a bad person, for example. I mean, you really have to, it's a choice. I don't know, it might not be a conscious choice, it might be a knee-jerk reaction, but on some level, it's a choice that I'm going to continue with this belief, even though I have evidence to the opposite, or evidence proving that what I'm believing isn't the truth or isn't the only truth. So beliefs are I would say, if you are a person who has a belief that you hold so strongly that you can't even hear questions about it, or you can't be questioned about it without becoming very defensive, maybe it's a little sign that says, hey, dig here. There's probably some real emotional gold there. Self-revelatory emotional gold. But I think, belief is really what's behind this listener's question. Like, I don't believe in this. And the only thing you can say is okay,
And I argue the person does, or else you wouldn't have asked the question.
Right. To our opening statements, yeah.
And I think that so many people have a tug of war between how they were raised, whether it be religiously, psychologically, on what's real and what isn't real. So if you're raised in a certain climate of none of this is real, this is
Right.
ridiculous. When you have these experiences of intuition, mediumship, coincidence, all of that, law of attraction, then you kind of like are lit up by it, and then you're dragged down by the old story that you're told. So I feel that if you don't fix that, you're going to be caught in this bike pedaling for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So you can choose not to believe, and that's fine. You're not going to come to us anyway.
Right.
That's fine.
Although spouses have been dragged by those who do.
I just did, as you know, I think I told you, I just did a reading for someone that bought a gift certificate for somebody. It was a gentleman. And I already know that most of the time, if a gentleman is doing a reading, I have to stereotype a bit, and someone bought it for them.
Right.
There may be there's an extra high bar to prove what I can do. And a very polite gentleman said to me at the end, as if this was a surprise, well, I came in skeptical and I had to hold back because I was like, oh, yes, of course. He said, and there's what you said to me isn't Google. Nobody knows this. He was so polite and so nice and so respectful. But I said to him, hold that healthy skepticism, hold it. But he knew when, okay, this actually is real. How the heck? I've never met her. She's in a different state. How on earth could she have known this?
I think you really touched a really beautiful point when you were talking about people being childlike. I mean, that's a state of wonder.
I was just going to say it's wonder.
It's a state of delight and awe and wonder that I think, kind of the older we get, the more we lose. Unless we deliberately kind of try to reintroduce it or stay close to it. So
I would ask the non-believers and continue non-believing. Again, it really doesn't affect us because you're not calling us. But ask yourself, like, what are the things that have happened in my life that I really couldn't logically explain? And I always go back to, you can't see energy coming into your house, but it is.
Yeah.
You can't see gravity, but it's there. So I wouldn't rely on just what you can see.
Remember that? This reminds me of that movie, that Jodie Foster movie. I think it was called Communion, something like that. Do you remember that? Where she portrays a um astronomer. So she works in a big, telescope, and she picks
I
up
vaguely remember something like
some
this.
sound from space, and she plays a role to kind of go somewhere. And
Did she put on a spacesuit?
yes.
I vaguely remember.
And what the reason I thought of it was there's a male counterpart in there. I think he's a seminarian or was a priest or something like this. And she is so black and white, and she's, I've got very evidential, and, not, there wasn't a spiritual aspect to this stargazing profession of hers, but rather more the hard science of space. And he said something, I wish I could quote it, but I paraphrase something like, well, she had said something like, if I can't see it, I can't believe in it. And he said, well, do you believe in love? And it shut her up for a moment, because that's not a thing that it's a feeling you can
Right,
have. And we can see evidence of love when somebody takes care of us, or somebody is generous with us, or is kind to us, or holds space for us, or that sort of thing. But love itself isn't something that you can put your hands on, and again, this is one of all of these subjective things, our imagination, our daydreams, our wishful thinking. None of them are hard and fast reality. They're not observable by our five senses, which we tend to weigh more heavily in our experience in the world. That's the real world, right? If I can see it, hear it, feel it, taste it, touch it, smell it, I think I counted six there, but you know what I mean.
That's what I was thinking, but I was like, okay, those work.
That's right, they work.
They
Their
work.
senses, right? So, but those things that, and that's the objective reality of the world, but the subjective stuff that we only personally can perceive or believe, we can't. Like, I can say I have had a dream and it moved me. And if you didn't have the same dream, I mean, you might say, it probably doesn't mean that, or it wasn't that bad, or, we can dismiss each other's experiences that when they're subjective like that. So, but they're in those beliefs, they're in the same, that imagination, the intuition, the wonder, that's in the same place as the beliefs. And so it can be very difficult to feel like, to have an experience and not say, oh, I'm making it up. Because an experience of wonder, or any emotion, really issues from the non-logical part of the mind, and the imagination is there too. So, there are people there who have had, I know it because I've heard them talk to me about it, crazy experiences, and they will say to themselves and to me, there's got to be a rational explanation for it, because they cannot accept and believe that maybe there's a non-rational explanation for it. Maybe it's a sign, or maybe it's a premonition, or a precognitive experience that you're having.
And we could even argue that that is a rational explanation, because there are more than six senses. There's five, and then our sixth, and even more. One could argue that there's a frequency, energy, and vibration that's scientific, that's actually causing a lot of this. So
Right.
I think there's actually a lot more tangible things here. And I think science can back a lot of this up. And they don't even talk about what they do believe in the science world, because it's kind of under wraps stuff to this day. I mean,
I think also the scientific field, and any listeners out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but they have science, I don't think pays. You have to get grants. You have to get, if you want to set up a lab, if you want to do some research, you have to have financial backing. And my understanding is that a lot of these sponsors want to back something that is going to deliver something tangible, whether it's a cure for cancer, or tracking a gene somewhere, or even something with biodiversity, like how can we weigh and measure this? And, science requires a method that can be repeatable by anybody at any time and get the same result. That's the whole point of a scientific experiment.
Well, that's
we can
why
recreate this in a lab. And
quantum physics
Yeah.
does do that. They do that, and there's, I believe, some other government things, you know, that remote viewing that they
Yeah.
stopped, which they still do. There's
I'm
no way they're not.
Right.
I think a lot of this is tangible. So for someone who doesn't believe, I would argue that if you've lived long enough and you allowed yourself to think about, oh, this was weird, that was weird, that was weird, ignoring the fact that the laws of probability would tell you there'd be some weird things. Okay, rule those out.
Mm.
But then go back and look. There's going to be some stuff you cannot explain, whether you want to believe it or not.
Have
So
you
I
ever,
think-
have you ever, I agree with you. Have you ever changed the belief? I'm trying to think if I
I
have.
mean, a belief that I have,
Yeah,
I must have.
I must have, right? I mean, we've grown and
I've
matured.
always believed in this stuff, though.
Me too. I've
to
always
admit.
believed in this stuff, so I'll
That's
have to
a
think
good
about it.
question.
But listeners, if you have experienced what we're talking about, maybe you have a firm belief about the existence of or the absence of the sixth sense, and has your belief changed? I think that there are people who have believed in God perhaps and have had maybe a devastating traumatic experience and no longer do. But is that because of anger and, impossible to process that kind of trauma? I don't know. We would like to hear it, because beliefs generally, they're so deep within us, they feel like the truth. And to surrender the truth
It's hard.
for something else is hard because there's so much connected to it. Our own, if I believe that, let's say I believe that in the patriarchy, let's say I believe that men are inherently smarter than women or ought to be, and there are women who believe this. I think I did to a lesser extent growing up, just because of the age, the era that I grew up in my age. All the authors were men, all the comedians were men, just they were everywhere. So you just feel like either there's a predominance of men or they're just smarter, or they have more places where they belong. But I don't think I had to really set out to change that belief. I think it naturally changed
Evolved.
as I met more women and learned more about the way the world works. So I think and I can't say that I was really, I would double down on that belief. I think it's probably one that I had that was installed in me when I was much younger, not necessarily by my family, but my culture again in the era that I was raised in. And I think it's very different from now, but I don't know. I mean, other beliefs have changed, like the belief that, I have to work hard, that work is more important than relaxation, that, industry is more important than leisure. And, and I've had to allow those beliefs to change. Something as sort of magical or non-rational as the sixth sense. I don't think I have had my mind changed in a significant way, or my beliefs changed in a significant way, or set about to change them myself.
No, because we were too open-minded. I had too many weird metaphysical experiences when I was young, and my parents were open to it, but concrete, but yet
Yeah.
open. I don't think there's anything. I remember past lives I didn't know anything about.
Mhm.
And then in the 90s, that Brian Weiss book came
Yeah.
out, and
Oh,
there's
I
a whole
remember that.
metaphysical thing
Many
behind
Lives,
it.
Many
Yeah,
Masters.
that
If
was
you haven't read it,
it was the game changer. There's a story behind it for another day, which I probably shared on another podcast, but something got me to look at that, and I didn't know. If you had said to me, do you believe in past lives? At that stage, I'd probably been like, no, having based on no knowledge
Right.
other than never heard about it growing up.
Right.
Read that book, changed my belief system entirely on that one book because it seems very plausible.
Mhm.
I feel that the people who are least likely to budge or the hardest to budge, and I don't know why this is, but I guess I can analyze it without too much difficulty, are atheists. Because there is no belief in anything else.
Mm.
Right? So I remember I was asked to do a group years ago,
Is it?
and he said to me, it was like a big deal at the time. There were going to be like people there in, certain fields that were big. It was like a thing. So it was like a cool private group to do at someone's party. And then the man hosting said to me, oh, but most of them, they're atheists, so it's not going to be a problem. And I paused. I said, oh, I think that is a problem. You want me to talk to dead people to atheists? Yeah, but don't worry about it, don't worry about it. And again, it was a gig I wanted to do because
Yeah.
of who it was in the media and TV and what, it was something years ago that I wanted to do. And it was one of the most disastrous experiences in
Really?
a group
Hmm.
I've ever had. They were like,
Well, why would
um,
a group of atheists sign up for a,
they didn't. I was invited as a guest for a private
I
party
see,
as an
okay,
add-on.
if anybody who wanted to go sit.
No, they
Oh, it
all,
was for
and they were
oh,
surprised by it, and I didn't love that,
oh,
but I'm
yeah,
getting paid to go in, and I knew the people, it wasn't like a stranger, but I didn't know the group of people,
hmm
who was on this TV show, that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, read a bunch of people like that who have secrets to hide. It was just literally
Get in front of
disastrous.
each other, right?
And they were like, well, and I said, if they're all atheists, you might want to consider hiring me, just not hiring me. Oh, not a problem, and I did like the people who were hosting. And it was not cool
Wow.
at all. And I thought, I'm here, like, trying to be nice and do a job, and you're just blocking me with every single thing
Yeah.
I said. So I find that that's a group that's hard, but I don't, in general, that's not a clientele I get.
Yeah,
Because when someone says they're an atheist, I say to them, are you an atheist or an agnostic?
mm,
And most of them are agnostic.
yeah, right,
And
right.
that is where the game changes
Yeah, that's right.
turns.
I can understand that.
And if people don't believe, it really doesn't matter. You're not in my wheelhouse. I'm
Yeah,
not in
right.
yours. It's like I don't
We're
care
not,
whether you
we're
be
not
paid or
giving,
not. I
we're not
don't
like
care.
selling food, you know,
Yeah.
this is a disposable income type of thing. It is a choice people make to enhance or clarify or heal or better their experience and
Yeah.
improve their well-being in a way that is not traditional Western medicine. So, um, I've seen the healing benefits of it.
Oh
I've
my
seen how people
gosh.
are moved by it, and I think it's extraordinary. You know, we both have therapists who refer clients to us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's
so I know that there's
absolutely.
certainly you know, medical professionals who believe. The only thing I think, as I've been just sort of pondering this whole belief thing, I think you and I, as similar as we are in our beliefs and in the way that we work with people, is we have different beliefs about evil.
We do.
Yeah.
Or
Like I
negativity.
don't
We
believe in
do.
it at all.
I don't even know how that, I don't get how you don't believe in that.
Mhm.
I don't know why I do. It's not like I wasn't raised with a Bible handed to me
Right,
saying
right.
this is bad, this is bad. There's evil. I just it's my belief.
Right,
So could
yeah.
we be malleable on that? Yeah. But I think where there's a negative, there's a positive, there's a
Mhm.
day, there's a night. There, I feel a left and a right.
Mhm.
I feel, but maybe it's like it intertwines with, because I believe a frequency, energy, and vibration. If we're vibrating low, we attract low.
Mm.
So I might have mine woven in that. But I think I've looked in the eyes of like three people in my life, and it was all hospital settings for the most part. And the other one wasn't, but she worked in one.
Mhm.
And I don't know why, this is a coincidence, maybe. I could see it in their eyes. I hear in my head, this is evil.
Mhm.
But I don't know the definition of evil really. But yeah, you don't think like there's badness? I don't get it.
I think people make bad choices. I think people do awful things, but I feel like it comes from a brokenness and
The power of
not from
something stronger.
a power that has its own volition. You know, I think there's only love and life. And I don't feel that even take love out of it, even take God out of it, the life force is never destructive. It's never destructive.
Interesting point.
It
I
is
hear what you're
always
saying.
affirming and evolving.
No, no.
You know, a plant, a tree is going to take up as much space as it possibly can. It's not going to judge a tree next to it as, oh, you're taking up my space, you're
Well, that
bad.
tree judged me.
I
I've been judged
hug
by
trees all the
trees.
time.
Kidding.
Well, maybe we're getting off track here. That's maybe a discussion for
In fact,
another
this
time.
isn't even like convincing you to, that's how you have to deal with us, because we will just blabber on and
Well,
on.
you know, and sometimes you really have to push and pull on a topic to have an understanding of it, to digest it. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, if you're open-minded and not so defensive, um, and you can still bring your skepticism or your belief, but if you can hear what another person is saying and allow that to be, like taffy, to push and pull a little bit. Can I stretch my belief in a little bit? And then the answer might be a very solid no. No one will ever convince me that, you know, having sex with children is, you know, a lovely thing to do, for example, you know, so.
You come up with some wild shit.
Well-
I did not expect that.
Well, you know, I mean, I think there are things where we have our own, and at the same time, I don't believe in evil. So, you know, I think we have our own, I don't know if it's a compass or North Star or moral code or whatever it might be. But I think there are segments of beliefs of ours, especially those that have been installed
Yeah.
so long ago, that are worth pushing. You know, it's worth pushing a belief, especially if it's a limiting one. If one that
Agreed.
says you're too old to go back to college, or once you marry, you should stay married even if the person is abusing you, or, you know, you're supposed to be a parent if that really doesn't, you know, go with what you know would be best for yourself as a man or a woman. So it's worth examining our beliefs and attempting, you know, I think if we can be flexible with some of the less profound ones and we can see how we can change, we can be open to at least examining or looking frankly, candidly at some of those that feel so rigid for us. But if somebody says to me, you know, back to the original, you know, confrontation from this listener question, I don't believe in this, I think it's bullshit, you know, okay, that's the only answer to that.
Well, yeah, the only answer is to that. And if you have this much of wanting to say, maybe I'm open to it, I would examine experiences in your life
Yeah.
where the unseen has become seen, or like, how the heck did that happen?
Yeah, yeah.
And just look at it. I think it's a richer life when you can believe more. It's a narrower life when you don't.
I mean,
It's more enriching.
it has always been fun. I don't care
Oh.
what the circumstances are, when something coincidental happens or something synchronous happens.
So
and you
that's just a coincidence.
Yeah, but doesn't something light up a little bit anyway?
I can't,
Even if you explain it away as, oh, well, I was just doing that, so
you
that
can
happened.
explain a couple of ways, but you can't explain every
Yeah.
coincidence away. I think it's a planned out thing, but
There's a little energetic shiver when you notice something like that. Or if this didn't happen to me, but I've heard a number of people say, you know, when I met my spouse, I knew I was going to marry him, or I knew I was going to marry her. You know, that's a metaphysical experience. Maybe you're looking into the future. Maybe you are meeting on a soul level somewhere. Maybe it's pure intuition. Maybe some love vibration is matching the love vibration in this
it's like a
person.
frequency. I was actually walking up a flight of stairs in the 1990, and my hands were behind my back like this, going up the stairs for work. And it was a group of us from different businesses or companies walking up this flight to go somewhere. And somebody grabbed onto my hands in the back that were clasped, like to say
Oh.
hi. The shiver ran up my body, and I was like, "What?" Like an electric shock. I was like, "What the hell?" I turned around, and it's my husband.
Oh, really? Oh, I hadn't heard that story.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and of like now we just had our 30th anniversary. We've been together 36 years. And I turned to be like, "What was that?" And it was him. And if you had said to me, "Oh, this is the guy you're going to marry," I'd be like, "Oh no, he's too young. He's too this." I would have knocked him out because I liked older men. Nope, he's younger. And yeah, that shock. And and my eyes didn't even lay a hand on on him. Didn't look at his hand touch mine. That's crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of wonder.
an
I think you have
energy
to have
that
at least have some spiritual curiosity. So, we would love to hear your stories about this. If you have changed a belief through an experience,
Changed a
especially
belief?
if you've
No.
changed a belief about this topic. Like, did you absolutely never believe in the sixth sense and something happened to you, or you had an experience, or you went for a reading and now you do? Or vice versa. We'd like to hear if you used to believe it and now you don't. You know, there's all kinds of people who have had near-death experiences or had a high fever and will come off the surgical table and seeing what was going on and come back with a different perspective. So however that came about, we would love to hear about it. We love your questions. Carla and I are having a blast here making sense of the ethereal so it can apply and guide you in the material world. So you can always reach us at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on YouTube and
Instagram.
Spotify and Buzzsprout and Instagram. So if you leave us fan mail on Buzzsprout, we cannot respond to it, but we take
We
all
still-
your questions and we do get to them. So leave us questions there or simply email us at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com. Next week, we are going to be at the Edgar Cayce Institute in Virginia Beach talking about mind magic.
So when you're seeing this, you might want to check the date on that
You might want to
because,
check, that's going to be the 25th.
yes,
Yes, the 25th. So if you're in the
25th.
Virginia Beach area, we're also going to be doing a longer workshop on mind magic with the New York
ARE.
ARE. That's the Edgar Cayce Institute, the Association for
Research and Enlightenment.
Research and Enlightenment. And that's going to be in August. So keep listening to us. And I think we have, that might be August 18th. Let me just check on that.
25th.
August 25th. Okay, so August 25th, 7 p.m. The ARE in New York.
Online.
Online,
Sure.
right? It's going to be live on Zoom, Mind Magic. And we're going to teach you how to do self-hypnosis, how to use the power of your mind to get into the state of mind where you can tackle beliefs that are problematic, beliefs that are limiting, where you can create new beliefs there in the subconscious mind that will then power your experience going forward. So reach out to us at info@etherealmaterialpodcast.com. Check us out on Buzzsprout, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And we love talking to you. We're so glad you're listening to us and
Keep believing.
keep questioning.
Keep in touch.
Thanks. Bye.